Rimini, Latin, Ariminum, is a city of 146,606 inhabitants in the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy and capital city of the province of Rimini. It is located on the Adriatic Sea, on the coast between the rivers Murcia and Ausa. It is one of the most famous seaside resorts in Europe, thanks to its 15-kilometer-long sandy beach, over 1,000 hotels, and thousands of bars, restaurants and discos. The first bathing establishment opened in 1843. An art city with ancient Roman and Renaissance monuments, Rimini is the hometown of the famous film director Federico Fellini as well. Founded by the Romans in 268 BC, throughout their period of rule Rimini was a key communications link between the north and south of the peninsula, and on its soil Roman emperors erected monuments like the Arch of Augustus and the Tiberius Bridge, while during the Renaissance, the city benefited from the court of the House of Malatesta, which hosted artists like Leonardo and produced works such as the Malatesta Temple. In the 19th century, Rimini was one of the most active cities in the Revolutionary Front, hosting many of the movements aimed at the unification of Italy. In the course of World War II, the city was the scene of clashes and bombings, but also of a fierce partisan resistance that earned it the honor of a gold medal for civic valor. Finally, in recent years it has become one of the most important sites for trade fairs and conferences in Italy. The total approximate population of the Rimini urban area is 225,000 and the provincial population is 330,000. History. For ecclesiastical history, see Roman Catholic Diocese of Rimini. Ancient history. In 268 BC, at the mouth of the Eriminus River, in an area that had previously been inhabited by the Etruscans, the Umbrians, the Greeks and the Gauls, the Romans founded the colony of Ariminum, probably from the name of a nearby river, Eriminus. Previously, the area had been Gaulish, from the 6th century BC, to that group's final defeat in 283 BC by the Umbri, in whose possession it remained until 263 BC when it became a Latin colony very helpful to the Romans during the late Gallic Wars. The city was involved in the civil wars but remained faithful to the popular party and to its leaders, firstly Marius, and then Caesar. After crossing the Rubicon, the latter made his legendary appeal to the legions in the Forum of Rimini. Ariminum was seen as a bastion against invaders from Gaul and also as a springboard for conquering the Padana Plain. As the terminus of the Via Flaminia, which ended here in the surviving prestigious Arch of Augustus, Rimini was a road junction connecting central Italy and northern Italy by the Via Aemilia that led to Piacenza and the Via Populia that extended northwards. It also opened up trade by sea and river. Remains of the amphitheatre that could seat 12,000 people, and a 5-arched bridge of Istrian stone, completed by Tiberius, are also still visible. Later Galla Placida built the Church of San Stefano. Crisis in the Roman world was marked by destruction caused by invasions and wars, but also by the testimony of the palaces of the imperial offices and the first churches, the symbol of the spread of Christianity that held an important council in Rimini in 359. Middle Ages. When the Ostrogoths conquered Rimini in 493, Odoacer, besieged in Ravenna, had to capitulate. During the Gothic War Rimini was taken and retaken many times. In its vicinity the Byzantine general Narses overthrew the Alemanni. Under the Byzantine rule, it belonged to the Pentapolis, part of the Exarchate of Ravenna. In 728, it was taken with many other cities by the Lombard king Liutprand but returned to the Byzantines about 735. King Pepin gave it to the Holy See, but during the wars of the popes and the Italian cities against the emperors, Rimini sided with the latter. In the 13th century, it suffered from the discords of the Gambacarian Ansidae families. The city became a municipality in the 14th century, and with the arrival of the religious orders, numerous convents and churches were built, providing work for many illustrious artists. In fact, Giotto inspired the 14th-century school of Rimini, which was the expression of original cultural ferment. The Malatesta family emerged from the struggles between municipal factions, with Malatesta da Verrocchio, who in 1239 was named podesta of the city. Despite interruptions, his family held authority until 1528. In 1312 he was succeeded by Malatesta II, first signor of the city, and Pandolfo I, the latter's brother, named by Louis the Bavarian imperial vicar in Romagna. Ferentino, son of Malatesta II, was opposed by his cousin Ramberto and by Cardinal Bertanda del Poggiata, legate of John XXII. Malatesta Guastafamiglia was also lord of Pesaro. He was succeeded by Malatesta Ungaro and Galeotto, uncle of the former, lord also of Fano, Pesaro, and Cesena. His son Carlo, one of the most respected condottieri of the time, enlarged the Rimini's possessions and restored the port. Carlo died childless in 1429, and the lordship was divided into three parts, Rimini going to Galeotto Roberto, a Catholic zealot who turned out to be totally inadequate for the role. The Pesares line of the Malatestas tried, in fact, to take advantage of his weakness and to capture the city, but Sigismondo Pandolfo Malatesta, Carlo's nephew, who was only 14 at the time, intervened to save it. Galeotto retired to a convent, and Sigismondo obtained the rule of Rimini. Sigismondo Pandolfo was the most famous lord of Rimini. In 1433 Emperor Sigismund sojourned in the city, and for a while he was the commander-in-chief of the papal armies. A skilled general, Sigismondo often acted as condottiero for other states to gain money to embellish it. He had the famous Tempio Malatestiano rebuilt by Leon Battista Alberti. However, after the rise of Pope Pius II he had to fight constantly for the independence of the city. In 1463 he was forced to submit to Pius II, who let him only Rimini and little more. Roberto Malatesta, his son, under Pope Paul II nearly lost his state, but under Sixtus IV became the commanding officer of the pontifical army against Ferdinand of Naples. Sigismondo was, however, defeated by Neapolitan forces in the Battle of Campomorta. Pandolfo IV, his son, lost Rimini to Cesare Borgia, after whose overthrow it fell to Venice. But it was later retaken by Pope Julius II and incorporated into the Papal States. After the death of Pope Leo X, Pandolfo returned for several months, and with his son Sigismondo held a rule which looked tyrannous even for the time. Pope Adrian VI expelled him again and gave Rimini to the Duke of Urbino, the Pope's vicar in Romagna. In 1527 Sigismondo managed to regain the city, but in the following year the Malatesta dominion died forever. Modern history. At the beginning of the 16th century, Rimini, now a secondary town of the Papal States, was ruled by an apostolic legate. Towards the end of the 16th century, the municipal square, which had been closed off on a site where the Poletti Theatre was subsequently built, was redesigned. The statue of Pope Paul V has stood in the center of the square next to the fountain since 1614. In the 16th century, the Grand Square, which was where markets and tournaments were held, underwent various changes. A small temple dedicated to Saint Anthony of Padua and a clock tower were built there, giving the square its present shape and size. Until the 18th century, raiding armies, earthquakes, famines, floods and pirate attacks ravaged the city. In this gloomy situation, and due to a weakened local economy, fishing took on great importance. A fact testified by the construction of structures such as the fish market and the lighthouse. In 1797 Rimini, along with the rest of Romagna, was affected by the passage of the Napoleonic army and became part of the Cisalpine Republic. Napoleonic policy suppressed the monastic orders, confiscating their property and thus dispersing a substantial heritage. ing demolished many churches including the ancient Cathedral of Santa Columba. On 30 March 1815, Joachim Murat launched his Rimini proclamation to the Italian people from here, hoping to incite them to unity and independence. In 1845 a band of adventurers commanded by Ribotti entered the city and proclaimed a constitution which was soon abolished. In 1860 Rimini and Romagna were incorporated into the Kingdom of Italy. The city was transformed after the 1843 founding of the first bathing establishment and the Kursaal, a building constructed to host sumptuous social events, became the symbol of Rimini's status as a tourist resort. In just a few years the seafront underwent considerable development work, making Rimini the city of small villas. At the beginning of the 20th century the Grand Hotel, the city's first major accommodation facility, was built near the beach. During the First World War Rimini and its surrounding infrastructure was one of the primary targets of the Austro-Hungarian Navy. After Italy's declaration of war on 15 May 1915, the Austro-Hungarian fleet left its harbours the same day and started its assault on the Adriatic coast between Venice and Barletta. During World War II the city was torn apart by heavy bombardments and by the passage of the front over the Gothic Line during the Battle of Rimini, and was eventually captured by Greek and Canadian forces. Following its liberation on September 21, 1944, reconstruction work began, culminating in huge development of the tourist industry in the city. Geography. Topography. Rimini is situated at 44 degrees 0300 of latitude northeast, 12 degrees 3400 of longitude east, along the coast of the Adriatic Sea, at the southeastern edge of Emilia-Romagna, at a short distance from Montefeltro and Marche. Rimini extends for 135.71 square km and borders the municipalities of Bellaria, Igea Marina, San Mauro Pascoli and Sant'Arcangelo di Romagna towards NW, Verrocchio and Serravalle towards SW, Coriano towards S and Riccione towards Shea. Rimini is located in a historically strategic position, at the extreme southern edge of the Po Valley, at the junction point of northern and central Italy. It is surrounded towards southwest by the gently hills of Covignano, Vergiano, San Martino, Monte Labate and San Lorenzo in Correggiano. Widely cultivated, with vineyards, olive groves and orchards, and dominated by ancient mansions. These hills, mostly made of clay and sand, connect the plains, created by Marexia and Ausa, the two most important rivers of Rimini territory, to the higher hills of the Apennines. The Marexia River runs through its valley and the plain in a very large riverbed and, after receiving the waters of Ausa, it flows into the Adriatic Sea through a deviator between San Giuliano Mare and Rivabella. While the ancient riverbed is used in its last section as the city's harbour, the Marexia, usually poor of water, was subjected to periodic, destructive floods near its mouth, where the riverbed became narrow after various bend. For this reason it was deviated towards north. Ausa Creek, which was the eastern limit of Rimini for many centuries, was deviated as well after World War II, and its original riverbed was filled and turned into an urban park. The coastal strip, made of recent marine deposits, is edged by a fine sandy beach, 15 kilometers long and up to 200 meters wide, interrupted only by the mouth of the rivers and gently shelving towards the sea. Along the coastline there is a low sandy cliff, created by sea rise around 4000 BC, partly conservated north of Rimini, between Rivabella and Bellaria Igea Marina, at a distance of about 1,300 meters from the sea. Rimini's territory, for its geographical position and its climatic features, is situated on the edge between the Mediterranean and the Central European phytoclimatic zones, and thus it represents an environment of notable naturalistic value. Districts. Rimini is the main center of a 50 km long coastal conurbation, which extends from Servia to Gabixa Mare, including the seaside resorts of Cesenatico, Gatteo Mare, Bellaria Igea Marina, Riccione, Massano Adriatico and Cattolica. The city of Rimini includes the seaside localities and districts of Tor Pedrera, Visabella, Visabar, Rivabella, San Giuliano Mare towards north and Bellariva, Merbello, Rivazora, Miramia towards south. The city proper includes the historic center, the four ancient boroughs of S. Giuliano, Giovanni, Andria and Marina, the seaside district of Marina Centro and various modern districts, Celle, Marecchis, Ena Casa, Vipeep, Colonnella, Lagumagio, and outer suburbs such as Pagili, Spadarola, Covignano, Grottarossa and Villaggio Wondagrimaggio, located outside of the Adriatic Highway beltline. More outer suburbs are S. Justina, Vito, Spadarola, Vergiano, Corpolo and Gaifana. The historic center of Rimini, surrounded by the city walls built by Malatesta, and formerly bounded by Marecchia and Ausa, has a distinctive, regular urban structure of Roman origins. It was divided since Middle Ages in four districts: Cittadella, Claudio, Pomposa and Montecavallo. The boundaries of these districts are not known, but it is assumed that they followed the current Corso d'Augusto, via Garibaldi and via Gambellunga. Ryan Cittadella, in the western area of the center, was the most important district of the city and included the municipal palaces, Castel Sismondo and the Cathedral of Santa Columba. Ryan Claudio, towards north, was popular and a peculiar urban structure tied with the near Marecchia River and the ancient coastline, situated much inland than today's one. Ryan Pomposa, the most wide district of the city, included large orchards and convents. Ryan Montecavallo, on the southern part of the historical center, is characterized by bowed, irregular streets of medieval origins, by the Fossa Patara Creek and a small hill called Montayan. Outside of the city walls, there are four boroughs, which were entirely incorporated to the city by the urban sprawl in early 20th century. Borgo S. Giuliano, along Via Emilia, dates back to 11th century and was originally a fishermen's settlement, dominated by the Church of San Giuliano. It is one of the most picturesque spots of the city, with narrow streets and squares, colorful small houses and many frescoes representing characters and places of Federico Fellini's films. Borgo S. Giovanni, on both sides of Via Flaminia, was populated of artisans and middle class. Borgo S. Andria, located outside of Porta Montanara, along Via Covignano, Via Montefeltro and Via Monte Titano, was strictly tied with agriculture and commerce of cows. Both these two boroughs were developed in 15th century, then they burned in a fire in 1469 and were rebuilt in 19th century, relocating small industries and manufactures, including a brick factory and a phosphorus matches factory. Borgo Marina, situated on the right bank of Marecchia, was a Portugal borough, heavily transformed by fascist demolitions and World War II bombings, which hit this area due to the proximity to the bridges of the city and the railway station. Climate. Rimini has a cold climate and is part of the Pianura Padana. http://www.sapere.it/encyclopedia/padana%2c+ pianura-.html https://it.wikipedia.org/wiki/pianura_padana. The climate is moderated by the influence of the Adriatic Sea, and it is relatively dry, due to the partial protection of the Apennines towards oceanic fronts. Rimini has the highest autumn and winter mean temperatures and the highest annual low temperatures in Emilia-Romagna. Precipitations are relatively high and equally distributed during the year, with a peak in October and two minimums in January and July. In spring, autumn and winter precipitations mainly come from oceanic fronts, while in summer they are brought by thunderstorms coming from the Apennines or the Po Valley. Humidity is high all year round, with a minimum of 72% in June and July and a maximum of 84% in November and December. Prevailing winds blow from W, S, E and N. Southwesterly winds, known as Libeccio or Garbino, are hot and dry firn winds, which may bring very high temperatures in each season. On average, there are over 2,040 sunshine hours per year.